begin to proclaim the word of God. Thank God for the ministerial staff who continues to uphold me and uphold each other during these times whenever God uses us. Thank God for Dr. Hill, who she and I, as she had said, have been here for 10 years plus. And we thank God that He has continued to use us. Wonderful. Happy birthday, Dr. King, Reverend King. Praise the Lord. Thank God for the choir. They have really blessed us.
Amen.
And God has used them so mightily today. How many know the story of Joseph and his brothers? Joseph and his brothers.
Amen.
He was a dreamer. And then we have Dr. Martin Luther King, who was a dreamer.
Yes.
So I'd like for you to consider a word that compares these two dreamers. And the title of our word for today is A Man and His Dream.
All right.
Our biblical text, Genesis chapter 37, verses 18 through 20. That's Genesis 37, 18 through 20. But the entire dream of Joseph, King Joseph, is in Genesis chapter 37 through 50. So whenever you get a chance, just review that. Our text. And when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, the dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, let us slay him and cast him into some pit. And we will say, some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. It was Joseph, church, one of the youngest of Jacob's 12 sons, who surprised and angered his brothers one day when he told them about two of his dreams. Joseph told his brothers, I had a dream in which we were bonding sheaves, that means bundles of grain. They were putting these bundles of grain. They were, it says, bonding sheaves in the field, when my sheaf, his bundle, arose and stood upright. And then he says, and your sheaves, Joseph talking to his brothers, your sheaves bowed to mine. Naturally, his brothers resented Joseph, first for the audacity of the dream, and second, for his boldness in sharing it with them.
That's right, yeah.
They sarcastically said to him, shall you indeed reign or have dominion over us? Before Joseph's brothers could recover from the shock of his first dream, he told them about the second. He said, I had a dream in which the sun, moon, and 11 stars bowed before me. This time, even Joseph's father reacted and said, just what are you saying? shall I, your mother, and your brothers bow before you? When God gives you a vision, do not expect everyone to understand. According to the scriptures, Joseph's brothers hated him because of his dreams, while his father simply made a mental note of them. Now we transfer to another dreamer. It was on a hot Wednesday, August the 28th, 1963, that Martin Luther King Jr., standing in the twilight of the fading afternoon and in the shadow of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., proclaimed for all of America to hear, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among them, these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He's continued, I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Hallelujah. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with this vicious racist, with this governor having his lips dripping with words of interposition and nullification. One day, right there in Alabama, little black boys and girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Yes. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. Thank you. The rough places will be made plain. That's right. And the crooked places can be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed. Yes. And all flesh shall see it together. The reaction of the world, even the clergy, was much the same as Joseph's brothers. They said, what do you do about a man who has gotten too big for his britches? What could Jacob's sons do with a young man and his dreams? They knew they could not discredit Joseph with their father Jacob, for Joseph was special, the son of his beloved Rachel. Joseph's brothers knew that the more they tried, the more protective their father Jacob would become of Joseph. The last time they tried, Joseph ended up with a beautiful new coat, that coat of many colors. On the evening of August the 28th, 1963, America was faced with the same dilemma. What do you do about a black man and his dreams? What do you do with a black man who dares to poetically articulate his dreams and aspirations? What do you do to a black man who dreams about equality and a reversal of the whole social and political order?
All right.
Who talks about exalting valleys, leveling hills, and straightening out the crooked places? What do you do to quiet this man and his dreams? Back to Joseph and his brothers. Joseph's brothers said, let us attack. Let us kill. Let us destroy the dreamer. And then let us tell a lie to cover up what we have done. Let us tell Father that a wild beast devoured him. And after we have disposed of the dreamer, then we shall see what will become of his dreams. There were those in America whose responses to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. were to attack.
That's right.
There were those who said, let us destroy the dreamer. We will destroy him by discrediting him.
That's right.
We will discredit him with his family first.
That's right.
By spreading all kinds of rumors and gossip about his personal and moral life.
That's right.
We will discredit him with the black community by calling him a thief.
That's right.
We will tell the people he is stealing their money and turning in fraudulent income tax returns. Then we will discredit him with white America by calling him a communist.
That's it.
Most whites do not understand him and do not know how to cope with him anyway. There are always some who will believe any kind of a lie,
That's right.
any kind of a tale, rumor, or superstition that we circulate about blacks. So let us destroy his credibility first. And if that does not work, let us slay the dreamer himself and cover up what we have done by withholding evidence and telling more lies.
Yes.
Then we shall see what will become of his dreams. Back to Joseph. At least one of Joseph's brothers, Reuben, thought, maybe we are getting too worked up about Joseph and his dream. Just because somebody dreams something does not mean it has to come true. After all, dreams can be just fantasy. Let him go ahead and dream.
That's right.
After all, when Daddy Jacob dies, we will be in charge. We are still the elder brothers, and there is no way he can jump all over us and become the head of the family. There were those who regarded Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dreams as fantasy. Governor Ross Barnett, we're getting ready to call the roll. Governor Ross Barnett of Mississippi. Senator Richard Russell of Georgia.
Yes. Don't forget.
Senator Strom Thurmond of South Carolina. Public Safety Director of Birmingham, Bull Connors. Sheriff Jim Clark of Selma. Governor George Wallace
All right.
of Alabama. J. Edgar Hoover of the
That's right.
FBI.
Call them out.
If they had been listening to the speech, they would have told King that he was fantasizing and out of his mind to believe that such a dream could ever come to pass in America.
As long as they
They probably said, the Negroes have had their day in Washington. They have had a good shot and a big picnic and can go on home.
That's right.
Now, believing that they have made some progress and we can get back to doing business as usual in America. But God had another plan.
All right now.
Listen to this. A repentant George Wallace, now sitting in a wheelchair just a few years later, after, from 1963, this is 1966, a few years later, is seen crowning the first black queen of the University of Alabama. The same man who had boldly stood on his feet to defy the mandate from the Supreme Court to block the entrance of the first two black students to that same University of Alabama. God has a way of making the wildest dreams
That's right.
become a reality.
Yes.
If they are rooted and grounded in His Word. A few years later, 1969, Strom Thurmond was forced to campaign for black votes in South Carolina if he wanted to be reelected.
All right.
Again, we were reminded that God still has a way of leveling hills and exalting valleys. Shortly after that, Jim Clark, Selma, Alabama, was voted out of office by the black vote.
All right.
God does bring down the mighty and exalt the lowly.
That's right.
Case in point, Donald John Trump, number 45. Just wait. And now, in this 21st century, we celebrate the national holiday of the birth of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes.
Not the birth of J. Edgar Hoover
No.
or Bull Connors. God can still make the first last and the last first.
Amen.
We're back to Joseph. Some of Joseph's brothers said, let us not kill him. Let us defer him. Let us sell him into slavery and file him away in that part of the memory bank labeled deferred and forgotten. And then we will see what will become of his dreams.
Lord have mercy.
While some of Dr. King's onlookers attacked the dreamer and his dreams and simply dismissed them as fantasy, others simply filed them away. They simply begged off the Negro question and deferred the dream. They put it in the hands of the Committee on Benign Neglect and left it there. They told Black America, we are too involved with too many other issues of national importance. We have got a war to fight in Vietnam. We do not have time to be bothered with you. But what happens to a dream deferred? The great black poet Langston Hughes
All right.
once asked, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun?
No.
Or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Or crust and sugar over like syrupy sweet? Does it sink like a heavy load, or does it explode? What does the deferment do to the dreamer? And how does it affect the dream? Dreams can turn into nightmares. Everyone knows about King's speech at the March on Washington. But not a whole lot of us have taken the time to read The Trumpet of Conscience, where Dr. Martin Luther King wrote the following. Listen to this. He says, I must confess to you today that not long after talking about that dream, I started seeing it turn into a nightmare. I remember the first time that I saw that dream turn into a nightmare, just a few weeks after I had talked about it. It was when 4 beautiful, unoffending Negro girls were murdered in Birmingham, Alabama.
That's right.
King says, I watched that dream turn into a nightmare as I moved through the ghettos of the nation.
That's right.
And saw my black brothers and sisters perishing on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of prosperity.
Yes.
And saw the nation doing nothing to grapple with the problem of poverty. King says, I saw a dream turn into a nightmare as I watched my black brothers and sisters in the midst of anger and understandable rage turn to misguided riots to try to solve that problem. Did the system finally beat Dr. King? Did the attacks kill the dreamer? And did the deferment plan kill the dream? The answer to that question is an emphatic and resounding no. Deferment, that means delay or postponing, did not kill Joseph's dream. And death did not kill Dr. Martin Luther King's dream.
Amen.
Dr. King goes on to say, yes, I am personally the victim of deferred dreams, of blasted hopes. But in spite of that, I close today saying I still have a dream. Because you know you cannot give up on life. If you lose hope, somehow you lose that vitality that keeps life moving. You lose the courage to be, that quality that helps you go on in spite of all despair. And so King says, today I still have a dream.
Yes. That's right.
Joseph's brothers made a big mistake. They assumed that Joseph was the source of the dream. They did not understand that Joseph did not make the dream up in his head. It was put there by somebody else. Somebody bigger than Joseph.
Yes.
Bigger than his brothers. Bigger than Pharaoh. Bigger than Jacob. Bigger than Egypt. They did not understand that the maker and giver of the dream never took his hand off of Joseph's life.
Amen.
They did not know that the dream giver was using their evil designs and that the lie told by the wife of an Egyptian official and a nightmare given to the king would be used to bring the fulfillment of Joseph's dream. They did not know that God was using their evil to fortify Joseph and his faith for that moment when Joseph's brothers would come to his doorstep begging for bread. We can visualize Joseph as he smiled at them. Not a smirk of, now is my chance to get even. Not a sarcastic grin of, I showed them. Not a gloating look of victory, but a smile of thanksgiving and satisfaction that somehow, through it all, he had been kept by divine power. Because Joseph had waited on God, he had been allowed to see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Because he had trusted the God who gave him his dream, that same God had taken those same dreams that people said could and would never be and brought them to fruition. That same God had taken those same dreams that folks said he was uppity for dreaming and had no right to dream and turned them into living realities. We can visualize Joseph as he looked at his brothers and said, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." What happens when a dreamer is attacked and his dream deferred? I'll tell you what happens. The same God who gave the dream uses those hardships and evil acts which were meant to destroy God's servant as a means of fortifying and strengthening the dreamer. When Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., what he was saying when he talked about believing in his dream in spite of nightmarish realities is the same thing that the church at Corinth and every black person who has struggled and met disappointments and still gone on to victory. And they have said, "We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed." And that's in 2 Corinthians 4, 8, and 9. His body could be killed, but neither Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. nor his dream itself could be destroyed, because King had learned to trust the same God of Joseph, the God of his mother and father, the God who has set his soul on fire, and told him, "I have set thee a watchman on the wall." And that's from Ezekiel 3 and 17. Dr. Martin Luther King, like the Apostle Paul, learned that in all things God's grace is still sufficient. And God's strength is made perfect in weakness. Dr. King knew that no matter what people said about him or did to him, he could not be discredited with his heavenly Father, who had put on his back the multicolored robe of mercy, redemption, salvation, love, and forgiveness that was purchased by the blood of Jesus on Calvary.
Hallelujah.
What happens when the dreamer is attacked and his dream deferred? If you trust God, he will let you see the fulfillment of your dreams. It was in Memphis, Tennessee, in one of the toughest struggles of his career, that Dr. Martin Luther King talked about another dream, another vision. He said, "We got some difficult days ahead, but it really does not matter
That's right.
to me now, because I have been to the mountain. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life.
All right now.
But I am not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And he has allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I have looked over and have seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know that we as a people will get to the promised land. With his spiritual eye, God allowed Dr. King to see what you and I enjoy today. A nation no longer hell-bent on racial segregation and destruction, but slowly and methodically changing its colors to align with the dream. Will we see the fullness of the dream in our lifetime? I do not know, but I do know that it is coming. Church,
That's right.
one day a man will no longer be judged by the color of his skin.
I believe it too.
One day a woman will no longer be judged by the texture or style of her hair.
That's right.
One day, a man will no longer be summarily dismissed because of his accent or his culture garb.
Yes.
One day,
One day.
we shall all stand shoulder to shoulder, brother to brother, and sister to sister. It may not happen until Judgment Day, when God will judge us, not by our outward appearance, but by the content of our hearts. One day. God bless you.